Third video on Nature TV, just without the vowel, so sometimes we say NTR. But that's what I want you to touch on.
NTR.
Yeah.
I like that.
So it's whatever way you want to say it, you know, you can say nature,
Nature, yeah, representing nature.
So hopefully the sound is good. We just finished a moving meditation. So this is Pablo. I met Pablo yesterday. And Pablo is the first person, if anyone's seen the live video that I done on Instagram, Pablo is the first person that I have met from the same school of thought, which I am aware of. I've never met no one in the physical who builds perspective in a very similar fashion. And that was the first yoga class that I'd done. That the way you started it, it was just instantly different, and I instantly gravitated towards it. It was like when I first started seeing people build, or how they used to like formulate perspectives, and like with the words, and like Dr. York was teaching people to be like linguists, you know. That just pulled me in. There's something about that school of thought that there's a resonance within me. And yesterday we were sitting down in a circle, and Pablo was sitting next to Tiffany speaking, and he just mentioned Tama Ray, and this is what I'm going to get him to touch on. Well, you may have heard me mention Tama Ray as a more ancient indigenous identification of the land of Sudan or Egypt, and when I heard him mention Tama Ray, I'm just like, did you just say Tama Ray? So like I automatically know where this guy's coming from. And then we had a chance to talk, and yeah, I came to his class, and it's actually his own method called Pime. So if you could elaborate on like what it is that you do, and touch on like the words and like some of the original identification methods, or like, you know.
Okay, well, Tamaray, what I actually teach is Tamaray Smai Tawi. Tamaray being Ta, Mary, okay, beloved earth, or beloved earth. And it's actually one of the ancient names of Africa itself as a whole.
Okay.
Not just Egypt and Sudan. It's one of the ancient names.
Okay.
But also it breaks down to Ta, earth, Ma, water, Ray, solar, energy, the energy either that's within you or the energy that is in the sky that we call the sun. Yeah. And the Smai means the science of breath, the science of breathing. And the Tawi means to unite the two lands or the two states, whether it be your inner, your outer, upper, lower. In ancient Egypt, Tawi was used in both a political way and also a philosophical way and a spiritual way. So Tawi, uniting two lands, so you had a pharaoh who would Tawi Egypt in the sense of Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. He would be able to wear what was called the double crown, because he was able to bring both of those states together. And Tawi also relates to masculine and feminine, the combining the polarities and making them unite. Your inner, your outer, your highest nature, your animal nature.
Mm.
Yeah, that's all Tawi.
Okay, and then you also said that
Smai.
Smai represents union and is
Yeah, it's another word for yoga.
another word for yoga. Okay.
It's actually more specific in the sense of they say yoga means to yoke, to bind, whereas smai simply means union
Yeah.
and breath,
Yeah.
the science of breath. So it's even more specific.
Yeah. Okay. So, give us a little bit of background as to how you've developed your own method, because I've never seen no one teach a class like that before, you know, and it was unique. It was very fluid.
And it's not my usual type of class because, you know, I was asked to do meditation and I was like, I really come here to do meditation.
Yeah.
But I can do it, but okay. But because I'm here to really showcase Tamare Smaitawi African yoga, or Pime.
Yeah,
Pime is Pablo Imani method,
Yeah.
African yoga.
Yeah.
For a long time it was just known as African yoga, and that's African yoga spelled with a K.
Okay.
How did I come about it, and how did I come about it? That's a long story, man. You want me to go through? That?
What we could say is touch on what we did when we were like pulling the boat.
Okay, pulling the rope.
Talk us through
yes.
that first half of the class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what we were doing was forms called hoodoo, and that's spelled Hudu. And hoodoo is an ancient term. I mean, very ancient. If you ever do any research into what some folks call the deity Hu, Hu. I mean, there's people out there that worship Hu today, and actually you could go on YouTube and find a whole group of people that are constantly chanting, and that's that being that they're chanting to.
Okay.
Now, Hu is one of the principles that traveled with Ra on his bark, on his boat. So that's when you're going into like the scripts and Per Emeru, which is coming forth by day, which people mistranslate as the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Now, Hu means creative force of will, and in Tai Chi, when you're doing slow movements with the breath and moving the chi energy around, this is known as intention. So Tai Chi means intention, and Hu Du is similar to Tai Chi. So I say it's an African form of Tai Chi.
Yeah. So what we're basically saying is that this goes for religions and basically near enough everything. Everything has its inception within Africa, or what? Didn't you use another name for Africa because Africa was the name of a colonizer?
Right.
So wasn't that? Didn't you mention another name in the class for Africa or something like that?
Well, basically, Africa's been through so many different names.
Yeah.
As you well know.
There was another one that you mentioned separate from Tamare. I don't know what it was.
It might have, I mean people have said, okay, you got Tamare, you got Kemet or Kumt of Egypt. Then you've got Al-Kebilan, which means what was before, and that's basically what it just means, what was before, land before. So you got all these variables of names. Having said that, though, Africa, even though it's called Africa today, we always recognize it as a land of sun, water,
Where
you know,
everything comes from.
where everything comes from. And it's actually, if you was to roll out the globe
Yeah.
into a nice flat space, Africa would be in the center of it.
Yeah. Okay. So it makes sense then that like all martial arts and all religions and yoga has its inception within this landmass.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, all people have walked out of Africa anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, they call it the not just the cradle of civilization, but the cradle of mankind. Yeah, or humankind.
Yeah.
So, you know, from the Americas to Asia, etc., during a period of time when there was a breaking away of the plates, everything fitted. So if you looked at South America and how the continent of South America and how it would fit with the the Atlantic coast of Africa, you can see how it just easily slots in.
Yeah. And to touch on one last thing, could you break down the connection between yoga and all these like styles of yoga that we see today coming from Hatha yoga, and how that is related to Hathor, the deity in the Nile Valley?
Yeah, okay. That,
We'll finish on that.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Okay, when you've got the yoga, okay, it's about balancing your upper and your lower, right?
Yeah.
And they say that, you know, it's about the connection and about connecting to source and balancing oneself. If you think about masculine and feminine, which in Africa was a very important principle. Okay, they didn't see things as positive and negative. They just saw things as masculine and feminine. So it wasn't about, you know, your protons and your electrons, right? It was male and female. So there was always male and female consorts. Now in ancient Egypt, you had cosmic forces of nature. Some people call them gods and goddesses and deities, etc. But I like to call them cosmic forces of nature.
Cosmic forces of nature. Personified.
Personified. And we all are that, actually. We're all forces of nature in our own way, you know, personified on this planet. And in India, that will be known as avatars, right?
Okay.
And so Hathor is one of those. Became as an avatar. So is Haru, who is a male counterpart. And Haru basically was a warrior. So his pathway is a pathway of discipline, and that's and yoga is a path of discipline. But also yoga is also a path of love. And Heteru represents the love aspect.
So Heteru is another name
for Hathor.
Hathor, which is where we get the Hatha yoga from.
Now, check it. You got Hatha yoga, which is Ha, and it's supposed to mean sun and moon.
Okay.
Hathor, she wears a solar disc on her head, and she wears what's called horns, right, on her head. But those horns are actually the crescent moon.
Okay.
They're not horns. They're actually the crescent moon. They also represent the crescent moon. And some people translate that as horns, and also she's known as the cow deity. She represents the cows, the mother deity, giving off milk and so on. She is honored both in the ancient lands of Egypt, even in, as the cow, and also India is also
That's why they don't
honor the
eat
sacred cow. The Hindus also honor the cow,
Yeah.
and so she's honored.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can see how a connection with Indian culture and also the connection with yoga. Now, and the Greeks called her Hathor,
Okay.
yeah, and now you have Hathor, sun and moon, and she represents sun and moon.
Okay. Yeah.
That's where you have the connection.
So when we're practicing Hatha yoga, are we connecting to the spirit of what Hathor represents? How does that work?
In one instance, yes, but you got to understand that within. See, now we're gonna have to go into history and the kind of like the breakdown of yoga and kind of where it comes from and all of that. Okay. So you have. I'll give you a story.
Okay.
You have ancient Egypt. You're going back 10,000 years, 5,000 years. And each time Egypt was under siege, Egypt was invaded many times. And and that's why it went through its names, because of the languages, yes? So it was invaded many times. And within each invasion, you had priests. You had thousands of priests who would exile themselves.
Yeah.
Now in ancient Egypt, you had priest of Amun, priest of Khonsu, priest of this being, priest of that being, priest of so many beings, and each cosmic force of nature had a group of priests. But not just a group, there would be an army of priests. And each time they would exile themselves. Some went to West Africa and they formulated and they were known as the Dogon. Some went further up and became Igbo, Yoruba, Akans, Zulu, down south, Maasai, so on and so on. They would come out of Egypt. Some of them went into Arabia, some of them crossed over and went into the forests of India.
Okay.
Now, they say that yoga was founded by a family called the Garashnas. And they went into the forest and they saw these people already in the forest doing these practices. Where did these people come from? They saw what they were doing and they copied what they were doing, and then they systemized it.
Okay.
And that's how you have your yoga. And then from that, after that, the Patanjali Sutras were formed. And that's after it being systemized. But first they found people in the forest. Who were those people? You had priests coming out of Egypt that exiled themselves in the forest. Continuing certain practices, working with animal forms, worshipping vaginas and worshipping phalluses, yes, and you had other groups of people coming in from the north and bringing in their practices, and those other groups of people were known as your Indo-Aryans. They didn't like women. They felt they saw women as animals, as low level, whatever. So they're seeing these people worshipping yonis and lingams, as they call them in India, worshipping the phallus, and they're like, "Hey, no, we won't have that, but we'll have some of the other things that they've got." And they created again a system and they put it in the Vedas.
Wow. Wow. So that's where we see the woman being like took out the Bible, and that's where we have like the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Right.
Where's the woman?
Right.
You know, and then like if this is the male phallus,
Yeah.
and this is the female womb,
Yeah.
then if you have a Christian or Catholic cross and they took out the feminine aspect and
Right.
put another male aspect on top of a male aspect.
Right. You got to understand. Look, this is a circle.
Yeah, yeah.
You took the circle out and made straight lines. Completely masculine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So no womb,
No.
no sun.
Crazy.
Okay, so it's completely, yeah. I mean, it happens right across the board. So when you're talking about religions, it's happened right across the board.
Yeah. Okay, so just to summate there, like what we're saying is yoga comes from people who were living in Africa, and then they migrated out into the forests of India, and then it became systemized, right? And then we see that connection where all will attest to that. All forms of yoga come from hatha yoga, and there is no thing as coincidences. So we find a deity that represents the sun and moon, or masculine and feminine.
That's right.
Which you could say is what you're doing when you're practicing yoga.
That's right,
is uniting
that's right.
those forces.
That's right.
We find a deity called Hathor, but is there a more ancient name than Hathor?
Yeah. Okay. Hathor is Heteru,
Heteru.
which is
Does that come after? So Heteru is before
for
Hathor?
Hathor.
Okay.
And it means the house of Haru.
Okay.
So Heteru means the house of Haru. And Haru basically translates as consciousness.
Okay.
Haru is consciousness. So you have Haru first, then Buddha, and then Christ.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have Haru consciousness, Buddha
We were
consciousness,
just speaking about this before.
Christ consciousness. So when people are talking about Christ consciousness, they're talking about Haru consciousness, really.
Which is a different name, but it's the same principles.
But it's the same principle. You got to understand that the story of Haru and what happened to him, he had a virgin birth.
Yeah.
So-called virgin birth.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Etc. All of that. He was hunted down, like his uncle Set was hunting him down as a baby. Same way that happened to Christ.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's
So
fascinating. Really.
all roads lead back to this land. So my experience so far has been people resisting sciences. Not all people. I have a very welcoming community of people who accept and are open to the stuff that I promote. However, there's always a few who resist, and I thank those people because they're the impetus for me to teach and go more hard with the study. But people will deny other African sciences whilst practicing yoga, not realizing that yoga has its inception alongside astrology or numerology or other sciences.
I mean, come on.
You know what I mean?
I mean, when you think about the sciences, you're talking about geometry, yes? You're talking about music. All of these, they're known as the Hermetic sciences.
Yeah.
And the Hermetic sciences was taught and people think it came out of Greece. But Hermes is
Tahuti.
Thoth, who is Tahuti.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear people saying like the Hermetic principles, and I'm
right,
like,
the Hermetic principles. and that trickled into our school system. So it's it's part of our curriculum, and part of that is using divine speech or what they call rhetoric. Okay, and so we're learning how to talk, and what you said earlier at the very beginning about linguists and using that, and then you have mathematics, and then you have geometry. And music, which is basically mathematics but with sound. So it's all interrelated, and we're all learning it, but we just don't go back to the source. We don't research and take ourselves back to the source. And that's all it is. But you know, some people will, and it's all good. We're all going to get to the source at some point anyways.
At some point. Yes.
Even if we have to come again.
Yeah.
To do so.
Right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So that's Nature TV episode 3. Peace.